Subscribe to the Donnie Houston podcast, man.
A lot of people don't know this either. The that killed Fat Pat went to the same high school that I did.
No shit.
Yeah. So he graduated high school like maybe 8, 9 years before I did. But there was a lot of his kinfolk that I graduated with. So when Pat got killed, there was a story from the streets in Houston, but then there was a story from the streets in Austin. And it's ugly.
So what was the story of the streets in Austin?
Story of the streets in Austin was Weasel came down here. Pat was the only one who knew that Weasel had that kind of cash on him. Weasel wasn't tripping on the fact that motherfucker so much got him for the money, but Weasel had his son with him.
Okay, wait. So back up. Can you talk about this from the jump?
Well,
because I've heard a few different stories about this, but just from the jump.
Here's the thing. Pat was getting out the game. You know what I'm saying? He was, done with that shit.
Straight music.
Straight music, you know what I mean? And he told me that himself, you feel me? Pat told me that out of his own mouth, that he was done with this shit because he was tired of looking over his shoulder. And Pat loved this shit, you know what I'm saying? And so I guess it was a misunderstanding, but we had a show in Austin, and it was actually the first show I was actually with Rec Shop. And that show, I guess there was still some money that needed to exchange hands or whatever, but Pat hadn't gotten all of what he was supposed to get. And so there was some back and forth, but apparently one of Weasel's stash houses had been hit by some jack boys. And Weasel didn't have any, he wasn't 100% sure, but thought that maybe Pat either knew something or had some involvement, Well, when Pat got killed, word on the streets in Austin was Pat was the only one that knew that Weasel had that large amount of money on him. He was the only one that knew what Weasel was in town for. You feel me? So, and what really set him off was, it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back was when he got robbed, he had his child with him. And whoever robbed him put a gun to his child's head.
Okay.
And, what are you going to do? If that's true, then what are you going to do? You ain't going to call the police. So, and I don't know if that's true or not. Like I said, there's my Ear to the Street in Houston, which is what, basically has been said on your podcast. But what I just shared with you was what my Ear to the Street in Austin told me. So it's, I don't know, because the Pat that I knew was charismatic. You know what I'm saying? If Pat was to walk into this room right now, you're going to be laughing. If Pat was to walk into this room right now, you're going to be smoking. If Pat was to walk into this room right now, he going to have some bad hoes come through. One thing that I learned is that charisma is something that you can't fake it. You can't learn it. You either have it or you don't. Some people can turn it on, some people can turn it off, but some people are just naturally always on. And that was Pat. Pat was always on.
Subscribe to the Donnie Houston podcast, man.